Our confidence grows on positive experiences. So the more we push the envelope of our self-doubt, the more our confidence grows. The more our confidence grows, the more willing and naturally and comfortably we are to speak up in English.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Frustrated to Fluent. I'm your host, Devon Bruce, and we help non-native English-speaking healthcare professionals communicate effectively so that way they can thrive in their careers. And today I am speaking with Joe Delmont-Ferrara. He has over 20 years of experience in management and business development in the U.S. and Italy, and in the last 11 years specializing in coaching. He created a unique hybrid program that combines coaching and teaching, designed to help global professionals build their confidence and communicate more effectively with their colleagues, teams, and clients. So, Joe, thank you so much for being here. I'm
For having me.
really excited to talk to you today.
Likewise, I am too. Get to know
Thank
you
you.
and your audience.
Thank you. And the reason why that I'm so excited to talk to you is because not a lot of people do what we do. We do not teach English. Our clients know English. However, there's a language gap and there's usually a confidence gap. And so we focus on those things. So I'm really excited to dive deep, and that way we can really help, because most of the people that we help know English already. So what we're going to talk about is miscommunication and what that looks like, what that sounds like, what that feels like, because our clients have miscommunication issues and it's a big topic. So, all right, so let's get into it. So can you explain what miscommunication looks like, particularly in professional settings?
I think I saw a really good cartoon of it today. It's basically when you think you're crystal clear in what you said, but when your audience walks away with a completely different idea of what you described or what you wanted them to do. And that right there is causing the frustration, the confusion, the chaos that costs you time, energy, and unfortunately, bottom line, money.
Yeah, that's so true. And one thing that I like to write about sometimes is how these miscommunications, it affects the bottom line in healthcare. And a lot of people don't really realize that. And I know that you work with global teams, and that absolutely affects their bottom line.
Most definitely.
Now, what are some common causes of miscommunication that you've seen among non-native English speakers?
Good question. I think it's mostly, how can I say this? A lot of non-native speakers that I work with are coming from Latin-based languages. So basically Italian, French, and Spanish, and Portuguese. And they're coming from a much more sophisticated, complicated language. And their belief is that the bigger the word I use, the more intellectual I look. Where in English, we say the simpler it is, the smarter you look, the more intellectual you are, able to explain something very simple. I think for them, coming down to a simpler language or a way to communicate is very difficult for them to overcome psychologically. So I could see it with your clients in the medical field. They have to use large words because it's part of the profession. But most of my clients come from more of the business side, and they're using simpler words. But it's difficult to explain something very complex, very simple. So they think they're being very clear, but in reality, they're being too wordy. And one thing I tell them to do is, if you have to explain something very complex, take a breath, focus on it, and go ask yourself, what's the one thing I want to say? What that usually does, it narrows the focus in your mind to become clearer. Also allows you to slow down the pace of your speech, so it allows you to speak smoother. And then your natural pauses will come in, so your audience will be able to process what you're saying and understand you better, so they can walk away. Another thing I guess you could say for help to clear up the miscommunication is to ask them, does everyone understand what I just explained, especially coming from a team leader or department head. Does everyone understand? And you can go a
Yeah.
step further and go, okay, John, just repeat back to me, just so I can make sure I understand that you understand what is it am I asking you to do. And that, to me, I've seen a lot of managers take my advice and really see great results.
Yes, this is why I'm so excited to talk to you, because I pretty much say the same exact thing.
Yeah.
A lot of people, especially in healthcare, they think that using these big, fancy, million
Yeah.
dollar educated words makes them sound fluent. And that can't be furthest from the truth. So then when they come to me and they're like, Devon, I'm having a lot of issues connecting with my patient, or my boss doesn't really understand what I'm saying, and having to explain to them that in English it's the opposite. You
Exactly.
know,
Exactly.
if we
Exactly.
yeah, we got to bring it down about 10 notches.
Yeah. Sometimes 15.
I know. Yeah, exactly. So I completely understand what you're saying. And then also too, this is something that I also have to say, is that that myth about the faster you speak, the more fluent you sound.
Yeah.
And that
Good
is
point.
not true at all. It is the exact opposite. And so, yeah, it's like, it's nice to hear someone who does pretty much the same work, but just with another group, just saying, yeah, these are big common causes of miscommunication and why these cause miscommunication issues. So it's
Well,
nice to hear that.
one thing I've noticed, I think communication is communication. It's across the board, no matter what sector or what industry you work in.
Yeah,
And
it's
one
true.
thing I tell a lot of my customers is this, that before going into a meeting in English, a lot of us become very nervous because we want to come across more professional, more authoritative. And to help reduce that anxiousness, there's a couple of things you can do. I've come up with a simple routine. And that routine is a 3-step fold. One, take 5 to 10 minutes before going into that meeting and breathe. Do box
Mm-hmm.
breathing. Breathe in, pause, breathe out, pause. Breathe in, pause, breathe out, pause. That's helping relax your mind and your body. Step 2, at the same time, visualize yourself performing at your very best, perfectly articulating all the words, all your points correctly and perfectly and confidently. See yourself as you want to be visioned or looked at. Okay? This is called autogenic conditioning. It's something I learned from my friends from the Special Forces, actually in the United States. It helps them, they do their physical training. So you practice giving your presentation or your speech. And then you go home and you visualize it in your mind with the breathing and actually performing the task. This is something I've taken and applied to corporate to allow them to give their presentations, which can easily be doctors giving their report with a PowerPoint slide, what's happening inside their patients in their department. And they'll go back to the first one was breathing. The second one is visualization that goes with it, so autogenic conditioning. The third step is very simple. Take a piece of paper, like I have, write down the keywords and phrases you want to use, and then place it in front of you. Why? No, if you have a video call like we are now, you can place it down and no one sees it. If it's a meeting, place it in front of your notes. Everyone has notes. And what it does is occasionally glance down, see the word, so you can use it when you want to, instead of panicking going, what's that word? What's that word? What's that word? And you forget everything else you want to say because you're so focused on one thing. It also allows you to see that one word on the piece of paper. It's like a file. Everything else is aligned to it. It's opening up a file in your mind. So that simple 3-step routine is a great way to eliminate a lot of your nerves, calm down, and perform at the best of your ability. This works for a lot of people, myself included.
Myself included. Yes,
Okay,
I do that. Yeah, I do the
we're
same
in good
thing.
company.
Exactly. Because yeah, I do public speaking and
Mhm.
I do that before I go on stage or before I give a presentation. I breathe it out and I visualize how I want it to look, how I want it to feel, the
Exactly.
impact I want to have, and that makes a huge difference in making sure that you are communicating effectively. So I'm really glad that you brought that up.
There's one other thing I think I want to add to this for the miscommunication, but it starts with, at the very beginning, we mentioned it before, confidence. A lot
Yeah.
of people whom I believe you're working with, the same as non-native speakers, they suffer from lack of self-belief. Okay.
Yeah.
Their autostima in Italian, their self-belief is low. The self-esteem is the
Mhm.
word. What I tell them as I come up with this very simple routine is to have them sit down in a quiet place, close their eyes, and go back to that time in their life when they felt that their English wasn't good enough. Why? Because today they're speaking it, but they need to go back to that place in their mind and retro replay that scene in every single detail. Where were they? What were they wearing? What were they saying? Who were they talking to? Who was to the left? Who was to the right? What were they saying? As much detail as possible. When you're done with that, now look at the younger you and say, how silly and stupid was that person? Because today I'm actually a medical doctor. I'm a director of marketing. I'm a national sales director, and I'm speaking English. What we're doing there is trying to eliminate this self-imposed barrier so it frees you up to start speaking more confidently. Because so many of our clients are speaking English, but they're not
Mhm.
coming across as confident as they want to be because psychologically, subconsciously, they don't believe it. Because what you believe on the
Yeah.
inside is seen and heard on the outside. So if we believe in
So
ourselves, we're
true.
radiating power. If we don't believe in ourselves, we're radiating uncertainty and weakness. And people don't want to work with uncertain or weak people. They want to work with confident people because confident people, you can build trust, you can build alliances, build strengthened friendships, and friendships drive business or relationships,
Mhm.
per se.
Yeah, that's so true. I'm glad that you touched on that because you're absolutely right. A lot of it boils down to confidence because
Yeah.
the people that we work with, they're already fluent and even
Mm,
extremely fluent, but they just don't have the confidence. With
yeah.
a lot of the people that I work with, and I'd love to hear if it's the same thing with your clientele, there's a lot of guilt for needing help with their English because
Yeah.
a lot of them are doctors and they feel like, first of all, a doctor admitting that they need help is hard,
I
but
don't think
a
it's
doctor
guilt. I
admitting
think
that they
it's,
need help with their English is 10 times harder. Being like, I'm not supposed to, like, I'm the doctor, I'm supposed to know. So
it,
the fact that I need help
good
with my
point.
English, it
Yeah.
causes so much of a stigma and feelings of immense failure. So confidence is one of the bigger issues. So is it like that on your end as
I
well?
think a lot of people are ashamed or don't want to have other people know that they need help with English. Because
Yeah.
I have a degree in this and I have all this experience. I can speak English. I speak 3 languages. I speak 2 languages. And for them, it's an ego thing. For men and women, it doesn't make a difference. It's an ego thing. I arrived at this level. I'm ashamed that I can't communicate better in English, but I'm not about to admit it because it's my ego, my reputation on the line, right?
Yeah.
That's another one I believe you and I work with a lot with our clients is overcoming that. How do you
Yes.
build up the confidence? And one thing I have always shared with my clients is in every meeting you have, every presentation you have, is to set a small goal and reward yourself for doing it. Whatever you do, reward yourself. It's a success or a failure, reward yourself because you're going to find out that no one really cares. It's all in your head. We
Mhm.
stop ourselves with our negative self talk or comparison more than anyone else stops us, myself included. I'm assuming the same thing for you. But because it's us, no way, other people, they're so good. Or I see a lot of it over here in Italy. Oh my God, Mario speaks so well in English. Oh, look at John Pero. He speaks fluent.
Yeah.
I can't do that. And so what do? The worst thing possible. They compare and they say, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this. And what do? They focus on what they don't want to do, so they perform exactly what they don't want to do. I tell
Yeah.
them, start focusing on what you want to do and what you can do and be positive about it. Our self-talk is so powerful. It seems so stupid, but in reality, it's so powerful. If you say you can, you will. You have to believe it. Because setting those small
Absolutely.
goals, one last thing, and I'll let you go, I apologize for cutting you off, is that
That's okay.
if we set small goals and we achieve them, the more positive experience we have, the more we build our confidence. Our confidence grows on positive experiences. So the more we push the envelope of our self-doubt, the more our confidence grows. The more our confidence grows, the more willing and naturally and comfortably we are to speak up in English. And people are going to respect you. Then you're able to demonstrate your know-how, your experience, and help others. Because I think so many of our clients are frustrated seeing someone who knows less than do, less experience, get the bonuses, get the promotions over them,
Yeah.
over something so simple as just communicate, you know?
And that's one reason why that I set up my academy the way that I did, because I've learned throughout the years that it's so alienating for them to have this issue. But
Mm,
having a sense of community can make all the difference. It helps get rid of that stigma, that shame, that feelings of failure, because they know that other people are doing it too. And
hmm
so having a sense of community helps with building
Yeah,
that
yeah.
confidence. So yeah, I really appreciate what you said about that and how people can start building that. Now to piggyback off of that, I do want to ask you a question about nonverbal cues, because
Mm.
that's something that's often overlooked when it comes to miscommunication. So how can non-native English speakers ensure that their nonverbal cues align with their intended message?
I go back to what I said before. How do they feel about themselves? It's their self-esteem. If they
Yeah.
believe in themselves, it will come out, okay? For example, we both have children. We both can go back, and the people listening who have children can relate to this easily. You know when your child is lying to you and when it's not. We call it women's intuition, mother's intuition.
That's okay.
But what is it? It's the child being uncertain or knowing that they did something wrong, that you pick up on the radiation of uncertainty coming from them. That's what happens to us. If we don't feel 100% confident, we're radiating something in our voice or in our body that's telling the other person, I don't trust you, because you don't come across as confident. You know, there's three things that people really want to do business with: person who's confident, person who's factual, and a person who believes in what they're saying. If you're not confident, you're not going to be factual. You're not going to
Mm-hmm.
believe in what you're saying, and you're not going to exude power coming into the other person, because you have to believe it on the inside. It all starts here. It goes back to, you believe you can, you will. If you believe you can't, you won't. So controlling your nonverbal or your paraverbal communication, in my opinion, it starts right here. And how do you do that? Starting with small wins and rewarding yourself, whether or not you're a success or not. Just reward yourself for actually doing the activity, saying a word, saying a phrase, making a gesture, making a movement, anything that's breaking you out of your habit, that's keeping you down, because you're never going to reach your goal by sitting there and continue doing the exact same thing. It never works. You have to do something that's going to break the mold. You have to do something radical, because you've gotten to this point. Now you have to take the last step, and that's going to be learning how to use English to communicate what you know, what you feel to your team, to your clients, and to your colleagues. So the
Yeah,
nonverbal cues come from you. How do you feel about yourself?
you're absolutely right. And I fully agree with you on celebrating those wins and
Yeah.
taking small actionable steps. In our academy, we have this space called like small wins.
Yeah.
It's a space where people can post their wins. And some people post something as small as, I spoke up at a meeting. Well, small, I'm using that loosely, of
A
course.
win's a win. A
And
win's a
yeah,
win.
exactly. And to everything is, I landed my dream job, but just kind of putting a light on a win is good. And then we also have this thing called 1 minute English. And it's great because a lot of times people think that they don't have enough time to focus on it. So in our 1 minute English area, I just post a question that they can think about in 1 minute or less.
That's
Something to
awesome.
thank you. It's just something to get their mind
Yeah.
thinking about English. And a lot of times, and this is through just popular feedback, a lot of the times on our 1 minute English section, we do like, what is your English goal for the week? How are you going to execute this goal? How will
I
you be
like that. I like that.
consistent?
Execute it, implement
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. And so I'm saying all this just because you're right. That is how you get the ball moving
Exactly.
with it.
Just had this same conversation right before our meeting. She's the national research director for Chiesi, which is a large pharmaceutical company. And we were talking about, she understands what I'm saying, but we did a role play of her having to ask me questions. Okay. So labeling, the mirroring, asking or paraphrasing or asking what and how questions. So I was role playing a story that last year my son and I went back to America for Christmas and we went through the whole process. She was just nodding along, said, listen, you have to implement it. You have to execute asking physically have to do it. They go, if you have to, start out in your own language. So start out in Italian and start doing it and choose one skill and do it all day. You'll be amazed at what you get out of your employees, your team, your colleagues, your friends. Ask them, start labeling. It looks like you're really excited. It looks like you're sad. It sounds like you're really not interested. It sounds like you're really interested, you know? Choose one and implement it. When you start getting into your system, even in your own native language, it will carry over into English. But you have to make it a habit. When it becomes a habit, you don't think of it, you automatically do it. And this is what we're talking about, execution, implementing. You and I can bring the horse to the water, but if they don't want to drink, they don't want to use it,
So
it's
true.
never going to be part of their routine. They're never going to come across natural and professional and confident the way they want to be looked at. They're going
Yeah,
to be looked
that's
at
so
going,
true.
oh, I like working with Joe, but difficult to understand him. He doesn't come
Right.
across confident. So there you go. That's one. But then you're never included in the meetings, the presentations, considered for the promotions, and you're definitely not getting the bonuses because the results aren't coming.
Um, and I love actually a really good segue into the final question I really want to ask you. So when miscommunication happens, what steps can people take to address it and resolve it quickly?
I go back to what I said in the beginning: is take a breath and allow your brain to do its job, and then ask yourself, what's the one thing I want to say, and then proceed. Because from there, you allow your brain to slow down. You're going to be very clear on what you want to say. And then also the pace in which you're talking will be slower and they will be able to understand you. Because a lot of times when we're trying to explain something complex or we're trying to impress people by speaking faster, thinking we're more fluent, we actually make things more difficult to actually understand. And that's when the misunderstanding happens because we're creating more of a mess of our words, or we're making a word salad, which become pretty popular in the last couple of months in the United States.
Yeah.
We're not clear on what we want to say. So what's the one thing you want to say and then go forward? Everything else will come naturally. But if you're not calm in your mind, you're not going to come across clear, confident, and coherent. And that's what you want to be. Then people understand it. They want to work with you. You build relationships and you strengthen relationships. And then people walk away going, I like working with Devon. Why? Because she's clear, she's confident, and she's coherent. She's factual. I like working with her. Plus, she's a good-looking lady. She's intelligent, and she knows what's going on. She had a great sense of humor.
Thank you. I appreciate the compliment. That's very sweet.
Well, I'm just telling the truth. You know,
Oh, thank you.
it's hard to hide the truth. You know, you're very charismatic. You're a very gracious person. So,
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that. That's very sweet. Okay, so listen, Joe, thank you so much for coming on. Where can people find you?
you can find me on LinkedIn under Joe Delmont-Ferrara.
Okay, awesome. And thank you so much for being on. And
Thank you for having me.
if you are having issues with miscommunications and you work in healthcare and you are tired of doing it on your own, please join us in our academy. It's a free community. If you are in healthcare, it doesn't matter if you're a doctor, a nurse, a leader in your field, it does not matter. We are here to help you and we are here to support. And so the link is in the description box below. So thank you so much for tuning in and I'll see you next time. Take care.
Bye-bye.